Hey guys, it's Andrew. Today I'm going to be showing you how to go from this to this. It's going to be fairly straightforward and simple. I'm going to do a breakdown of every step that you have to do to get to that point, as well as what you need to do beforehand to capture the images to be able to combine what you need to get the final product. So without wasting any more time, let's go right on ahead and get into it.
Alright, so in order to achieve this kind of look, you need two pictures that you're essentially going to combine together to make one image. It's called a composite. The first picture you're going to need is your foreground. You're going to shoot your foreground just after dusk, so right when the sun goes behind whatever subject or right behind the horizon. It'll give the foreground of your image a really dimly lit kind of look to it, and almost like a warm dimly lit. You can change color correction later on, but I like the warm look. To get a picture like this, you're going to want to shoot at a really low shutter speed, and everything that you're going to do is going to require a tripod. Without a tripod, none of this is really possible. So after you capture your foreground, you're going to need to capture your stars. And in this case, for me, it was the Milky Way. This was my first attempt at trying to capture the Milky Way. I went to West Cliff, Colorado, where there is virtually no light pollution. And so you can go out every night. You can see the Milky Way with your naked eye. It's honestly beautiful. So, provided you have the right light conditions, to shoot astrophotography like this, you of course need a tripod. You need to set it up, you need to angle it, preferably a wide angle lens with a wide aperture, and you're going to set an exposure length of between 15 and maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds is kind of pushing it. Once you go past the 15-second mark, you're going to start getting light trails. So if you can see here, you can almost see the length of these lights of the stars, and that was only at 15 seconds. So as a whole, it's not a big deal, but once you start getting to like a 30-second range, those lines are going to become very apparent. So the next step is to throw them into Photoshop and put them together. So what you're going to start off doing is bringing your two photos into Photoshop. You're going to put your foreground picture into the top section and your stars into the bottom. The first photo you bring in, you're going to want to right click on it and do convert to smart object, so that it has this little icon here. So make sure both have these little icons. If not, for whatever reason, right click, convert to smart object. From there, you're going to double click on your horizon photo. It's going to open up your smart object. You're going to come over here and select the pen. Zoom in as close as you can without it getting too pixely, and you're going to very carefully follow the mountains and get as close as you can to the edge. I'm just kind of roughly doing it because I've already done this, but essentially you're going to follow the mountain line, get as close as you can, get all these little details to make it easier later on. So once you have them all penned out, you're going to open up your paths box here, and if you don't see it, you're going to go to Window, go to Paths. You're going to select your path and make sure you double click on it. It won't say a name, it'll say path 1 or whatever, and you're going to name it. And by naming it, you save it, and that way you don't accidentally delete it if you want to start another path for whatever reason. So select your path, make sure it has all of this selected, and then you're going to click this little dotted circle. Once you click that dotted circle, you're going to click this little rectangle with the cutout, and it's going to create a mask. And that will mask out your sky. And you're going to Control S to save this. You can close that for now, we'll be back later. And there you have this nice little, you got your foreground, and then you got your star photo in the background. Once you have this, it doesn't necessarily look realistic, so we want to do what we can to make it realistic. The next step we're going to be taking is creating a new layer over your foreground. You're going to hold Alt and click on this little line. You'll see it kind of turn into this little icon here, and you'll click, and what that does is it allows all the actions taken on this layer to only show up so long as they intersect with the layer it's attached to. So I could, for instance, go to my pen. I can draw up here. You can see it's drawing stuff, but you don't see it. But if I do that down here, you can see it because it intersects with this layer. And all we're going to be doing is zooming in close. You want to make sure you have the soft round brush. You're going to gently, not actually painting over it, but just enough to kind of darken those edges, make them look a little more natural. If they're a little too dark, it's okay. Just, you don't want them to be super dark, just dark enough. Once you've got that all painted in, you can go to your opacity and kind of mess with the opacity to make it look a little more realistic. You don't want those like true darks to come through. You can zoom in a little bit, make sure that the darks around there kind of match the darkest, maybe the lightest darks in your foreground picture. So that way they kind of fit in a little bit more and don't look all unnatural. And then you can even get your eraser. Don't actually brush over it, just use that feathering of the soft round to get that little natural fading to it. Another step you can take if you go back into this layer mask, or the smart object, sorry, you can select your layer mask, double click on the layer mask, and it will bring up this view. You can mess with your settings here to kind of clean up your line that you selected. You can shift down, and shifting down will bring that selection down into the mountain to get rid of that kind of light effect. So we'll shift down like 17%. You can feather it a little bit so that way it's more blended. Hit OK, Control S to save it, and just you can mess around with those just to clean up your selection a little bit. So that looks a little better. There's not quite a harsh white line around there, but we will take this a step further, and what we will do is go back into this smart object, have this layer selected, do Control C, Control Copy, close the smart layer, make sure you don't have anything selected, but click in this area, Control V. What this is going to do is it's going to paste everything in that smart object over top, and it's going to center it. So you're going to want to bring it down so that way it's exactly lined with this, with the picture behind it. You're going to click on the mask and do a Control I. That's going to invert your image. So essentially this makes it look like the original image, like nothing ever happened to it, and we don't want that. So what we want is to bring the opacity down. What this is going to do is introduce that natural atmospheric effect. You're never going to get these true blacks with this lighting. It just doesn't look normal. There's too harsh of a contrast here. So you're going to mess with the opacity just to give it that light look. And I want there to be more of like a rays coming up from the mountains. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to make the opacity probably a little bit too high to where it doesn't look good as a whole. But then we're going to select our mask. You're going to go over to your gradient. Your bottom is it's essentially going to look like this once you do it. You're going to want your bottom to be white. You can reverse them like this. Bottom to be white. Top, you're going to want to be a medium to light gray. And then start from the top, work your way down. I would say about right here works for me, maybe a little bit more. And so that way you get that nice horizon kind of sunset look to your Milky Way. And that even cleans up this a little bit more. So maybe you want to go back into your layers, go onto the little dark painted objects that you had, or on the the rim of the mountains. You can turn them down maybe. Just fine tune it from this point. And you should end up with a photo like this. Nice and simple. You can always fine tune things, go back, change whatever you want, make it look more appealing in whichever way or whatever situation that you have. It's a different story if you have things with more finer edges, or if there's little speckles in between, like say your foreground is trees. It's a little bit different of a story, but if you're just doing mountainscapes with astrophotography, this is how you would do it. So thank you so much for watching. If you want more videos like this, or if you like what you see or have any questions, be sure to leave a comment. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one.